Everyone knows Homer's brain is a hamster on a wheel, but here are 10 times he took dumb to a whole new level. Number 10. Tiger repelling rock. In much ado about nothing, Springfield is shaken by a bear wandering onto Evergreen Terrace, sparking Homer's demand for a bear patrol. Lisa quickly points out the logical fallacy in Homer's thinking, but he's too clueless to get it, eventually buying a tiger-repelling rock after a confusing explanation. Meanwhile, Homer leads an angry mob to City Hall demanding the patrol, which Quimby agrees to, but it comes with a hefty tax increase. Naturally, Homer's outraged and leads another mob. Springfield's residents don't want to pay for the patrol either. Quimby deflects the blame onto undocumented immigrants, introducing Proposition 24 to deport them. At the Quickie Mart, Apu admits he's undocumented, and fearing deportation, he buys fake citizenship papers from Fat Tony. After failing to act American, Apu decides to go legit. But Homer's help studying for the citizenship test is hilariously awful. Apu passes the test, becoming a citizen.
Please identify this object.
It appears to be the flag which disappeared from the public library last year.
Correct.
While groundskeeper Willie surprisingly gets deported. Number 9. Not getting his new name. In this Cape Fear-inspired episode, the Simpsons entered the Witness Protection Program to escape the terrifying sideshow Bob, who's been released from prison. The agent gives Homer a new identity as Homer Thompson, but Homer hilariously struggles with it, failing miserably to respond to his new name.
No problem.
Hello, Mr. Thompson.
A simple smile and nod approach also doesn't work, leading to Homer's classic one-liner, "What's the matter with me?" Meanwhile, Bart is getting threatening letters, one of which is from Homer after Bart writes "wide load" on his dad's rear end. Sideshow Bob's parole hearing is absurd, with his lawyer justifying Bob's past crimes. Bob convinces the board he's reformed and is released. The Simpsons relocate to Terror Lake, but Bob's still lurking, getting hit by rakes and trampled by elephants. Bob eventually kidnaps Bart, but after an operatic detour, the boat crashes and the police catch Bob. Back home, Grandpa's turned into a woman, and chaos continues. Number 8. Ruining everyone's trip. In Boy Scouts in the Hood, Bart joins the junior campers, and he and Homer embark on a father-son rafting trip with Ned and Rod Flanders. What should be a fun adventure quickly turns into a disaster thanks to Homer's constant incompetence. First, he turns the map into a hat, which blows away, and then uses their water to wash his socks. He eats all their rations and even shoots down a rescue plan. Homer eventually saves the day by bringing them to an oil rig, but it's a classic Homer move. Meanwhile, Bart, still recovering from a sugar overload after spending Homer's lost $20, joins the junior campers to avoid a pop quiz. At first, he wants out, but stays for the pocket knife. The rafting trip is a nightmare, but Homer manages to save them by sniffing his way to a Krusty Burger.
100 Krusty Burgers!
You want fries with that?
You did it, Dad! You saved us!
Number 7. Using plutonium to grow crops. An EIEI annoyed grunt. The Simpsons move to Homer's old farmhouse to escape a southern colonel who wants to duel him. Homer, eager to farm, discovers the land is terrible, so he calls Lenny for plutonium and creates tobacco, a dangerous mix of tobacco and tomatoes. People quickly become addicted, but Homer's refusal to sell for a measly $150 million leads to disaster.
And $50 million.
100! May I speak to my family for a moment?
Meanwhile, the colonel shows up for the duel, and Homer's life is on the line. The family tries to escape, but Homer insults Jimmy Carter and is nearly slapped by the former president. They find Grandpa's old farm and start farming. Number 6. Jumping Springfield Gorge. Bart the Daredevil is a classic early episode, remembered for its wild stunts and Homer's ultimate moment of stupidity. Inspired by Daredevil Lance Murdoch, Bart decides to jump Springfield Gorge on a skateboard. Homer tries to stop him, but ends up in the same situation himself, because why not? Homer's failed stunt is one of the show's dumbest, with him being dragged along by his own skateboard, leading to one of the most hilarious moments in Simpsons history.
Oh, thank God, thank God, thank God.
I love you, Dad!
I love you too, son.
Later, Homer drags the family to a monster truck rally, even though it conflicts with Lisa's recital. After a rushed attempt to speed up the concert, They end up arriving late and driving into the arena, where Truckosaurus destroys the family car. At the rally, Lance Murdoch's daredevil stunt leaves him hospitalized, but Bart remains determined. Despite his dad's warning, Bart tries to jump the gorge, only for Homer to take the plunge instead, ending up in the hospital with Murdoch, where he delivers a classic line. "You think you got guts? Try raising my kids." Number 5. Homer doesn't get that Marge is pregnant. In And Maggie Makes 3, Homer's obliviousness reaches new heights as he completely misses the news that Marge is pregnant with Maggie.
And it felt in school.
So, Dad, were you excited that Mom was pregnant?
Actually, your mother hadn't told me yet. At that time, I had no idea Maggie even existed.
Everyone in Springfield congratulates him, and he thinks it's all about his new job at the bowling alley. Even a baby shower and Moe mentioning the pregnancy fly over his head. It's not until Maude congratulates him on the new job that Homer finally gets it. In a flashback, Homer remembers how he traded his stressful nuclear power plant job for the laid-back bowling alley gig. However, Marge's pregnancy throws a wrench in his perfect plan, forcing him to return to the power plant. Homer reluctantly agrees but makes a heartfelt change for Maggie when he returns to work. He fills his station with Maggie's baby photos, creating a touching reminder to do everything for her. Homer's journey from clueless dad to devoted father ends in one of the most emotional moments in The Simpsons. Number 4. Homer became brain damaged. Homer's genius, or lack thereof, has a few origin stories, but this one might just take the cake. When Homer was a kid, he desperately wanted a catcher's mitt. Grandpa, being the frugal icon he is, refused to buy it. So, what did young Homer do? He held his breath in protest for so long, in fact, that he passed out, smacked his head on a coffee table, and according to Homer himself, gave himself permanent brain damage. Classic Homer move, right? Fast forward to parent-teacher night, where Marge learns Bart's antics are setting him up for a life of mediocrity. Or male stripping, apparently. After a series of chaotic events involving broken dentures, a joyriding Maggie, and Bart's refusal to behave, Homer lays down the law. Bart's forbidden from watching the Itchy and Scratchy movie. Decades later, Bart's a Supreme Court justice, proving Homer's discipline wasn't as dumb as his childhood protests.
We'll all be the Itchy and Scratchy movie.
Number 3. What's a spoon? Bart's friend falls in love, a classic Simpsons episode where we get to watch Homer's brain do what it does best, fail hilariously. The fun kicks off when Lisa becomes worried about Homer's eating habits after watching a documentary about obesity. Marge orders him a subliminal weight loss tape.
Creamery butter.
Dad, what if I told you you could lose weight without dieting or lifting a finger?
But in true Springfield fashion, the company is out of stock and sends a vocabulary builder tape instead. Homer starts listening to it in his sleep, and suddenly, our favorite donut-devouring dummy is throwing out fancy words like a wannabe Shakespeare. Unfortunately, his weight stays the same, and when he realizes the tape isn't helping, he tosses it, returning to his regular vocabulary, or lack thereof. Case in point, he forgets the word for spoon and calls it a metal dealie.
Marge, where's that metal dealie you used to dig?
Meanwhile, Bart's bestie Milhouse falls head over heels for a new girl, Samantha Stanky, leaving Bart feeling like the third wheel in his own treehouse. Samantha's dad eventually sends her to a strict convent school after Bart spills the beans about their smooching sessions, sparking a hilarious yet heartfelt subplot about friendship, guilt, and of course, revenge. Number 2. Cooked cereal on fire. In Homer the Smithers, Homer somehow manages to set cereal on fire. Yes, cereal because, well, it's Homer. He gets a gig as Mr. Burns' new assistant, and one of his main duties is making breakfast. Homer tries a bizarre kebab, which he sets on fire and then moves to something simpler, coffee and donuts. Seems foolproof, right? Not quite. Burns hates it. Meanwhile, Smithers, feeling guilty for not protecting Burns from a drunk Lenny during an employee appreciation night, beats himself up, literally, against the limo steering wheel. Burns tells Smithers to take a vacation and hires Homer as his replacement, thinking he's the perfect candidate for failure. Homer's attempts to impress Burns backfires, culminating in a punch to Burns' face, which leaves the old man cowering. Burns then tries doing everything himself, enjoying the independence. When Smithers returns, Burns fires him, leaving Homer and Smithers plotting to get their jobs back. Things go south, Burns gets knocked out of the window, and Smithers owes Homer big time. Number 1. Nearly created Chernobyl. Inspectors from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission arrive at Springfield Nuclear Power Plant for a surprise competence check, and of course, chaos ensues.
Okay, men, Geiger counter's on.
They set up a simulator van in the parking lot to evaluate the staff, but Smithers, knowing disaster is inevitable, sends Homer and 2 other dimwits to guard a bee in the basement. Predictably, Homer smashes the jar, the bee escapes, and Homer ends up stung and popping out of a manhole right next to the inspector's van. Smooth, right? Homer's test in the van is pure calamity. Even though the simulator has 0 nuclear material, he manages to trigger a meltdown that melts the van into the parking lot. Mr. Burns tries bribing his way out, but the inspectors demand Homer get proper training, or else. Burns pulls strings to get Homer into Springfield University, where Homer wreaks havoc, befriends nerds, and somehow graduates, proving sheer dumb luck beats intellect every time.